This is a story that I heard from an old man named Mohei. Long ago, there was a small castle in Nakayama near our village, and there Lord Nakayama lived. There was a small fox named Gon in the mountain not far from Nakayama. Gon lived alone in a hole which he dug in the forest. His hole is thickly covered with lots of ferns. He went to the village nearby and played pranks night and day. He dug and scattered potatoes, set fire to dried stems of wild turnip, tore off peppers hung at the back of the farmer's house, and did various other things. One autumn, Gon sat in the hole while rain fell continuously for 2 or 3 days. After the rain stopped, Gon came out from his hole, relieved. The sky was clear, and the shrike was singing. Gon went to the bank of the stream in the village. Raindrops were still shining on the silver grass there. The river usually held less water, but after 3 days of rain, the water level had risen. Silver grass or roots of bush clover that had fallen in the yellowish water were buffeted by the currents. Gon was walking down to the river on the muddy road. He happened to see a person doing something in the river. Gon walked silently in a grassy zone, avoiding being found, and looked at the person quietly. "It's Hyoju," Gon thought. Hyoju was tucking up a tattered black kimono, soaked by the water up to his waist, and waving a net, which is called harikiri, to catch fish. A round leaf of bush clover was stuck on his cheek, and he was wearing a hachimaki. After a while, Hyoju lifted up the very back of the harakiri net like a sack from the water. There were mixed up roots of wood, leaves of grass, and rotten wood chips. However, there were some white shining things. They were the bellies of eels and big smelts. Hyoju threw the eels and fish into his creel with the garbage. Then he tied the harakiri again and put it in the water. After that, Hyoju came out from the river carrying the creel, put it on the bank, and ran to the upper part of the river to look for something else. After Hyoju disappeared, Gon popped up from the grass and ran to the creel. He wanted to play a little prank. Gon grabbed the fish in the creel and threw them into the lower part of the river from where the harakiri net was set. Each fish dropped into the muddy water with a plop. At the end he tried to grab the eel, but since it was slippery he could not grab it. Gon impatiently stuck in his head and caught the eel's head with his mouth. The eel said, "Kyu," and wound around Gon's neck. Right after that, Hyoju yelled at him from over there, "Wow, thief fox!" Gon jumped up in surprise. He tried to run away by throwing the eel, but the eel did not let go of Gon's neck. Gon kept it as is and jumped across to run away hard. He looked back under the alder tree near his hole, but Hyoju did not follow him. Gon was relieved and bit the eel's head, which finally released him. Gon put it on the leaves of grass outside of his hole. 10 days later, Gon passed by the back of the house of Yasuke, a farmer. Yasuke's wife was dyeing her teeth black under a fig tree. When he passed by the back of the house of Shinbei, Shinbei's wife was combing her hair. Gon thought, "There's something going on in the village." What is it? The autumn festival? But if there's a festival, the sound of a drum or a flute should be around. Besides, Nobori should be stood at the shrine. Walking while thinking this kind of thing, he arrived in front of Hyoju's house, which has a red-colored well in front. There are many people gathering in the small broken house. Women who are wearing their good kimonos, hanging towels at their waist, were cooking at an outside kamado. In the big pot, something was being boiled. "Ah, it's a funeral," Gon thought. "Somebody of Hyoju's house must have died." In the afternoon, Gon went to the cemetery of the village and hid behind the Rokujizo. It was a fine day, and the roof tile of the castle was shining far away. Cluster amaryllis were blooming in the cemetery as if they were red cloth. Tolling of the bell from the village started. It is a signal of funerals. Then, people wearing the white kimonos of a funeral procession appeared gradually, and their voices were getting closer. After the people went past, the cluster amaryllis were bent by their feet. Gon stretched his neck to look at them. Hyoju was wearing a white kamishimo and carrying a Buddhist memorial tablet. Usually his face was lively, like a red sweet potato, but today it looked somehow crestfallen. It was Hyoju's mom who died, Gon thought while pulling back his head. That night, Gon thought in his hole. Hyoju's mom was sick in bed and said she wants to eat eel. Then Hyoju went fishing with the harikiri net. However, I played a prank and took the eel. Because of that, Hyoju could not let his mom eat eel. His mother must have died thinking, I want to eat eel. I want to eat eel. Disk, I shouldn't have played that prank. Hyoju was rinsing rice near the red well. When Hyoju lived with his mother, they were poor. After his mother's death, he was alone. Hyoju was alone, the same as me, Gon thought, watching him at the back of his storage. When Gon was about to leave from the storage, he heard the voice of the sardine seller. Bargain of sardines! Very fresh sardines! Gon ran in the direction of the cheerful voice. Yasuke's wife said, Give me a sardine, from the back door. The sardine seller stopped his cart that was loaded with baskets of sardines, entered Yasuke's house holding shiny sardines in both hands. In the meantime, Gon grabbed 5 or 6 sardines from the basket, ran and threw the sardines into Hyoju's house from the back door, and ran back to his hole. When he looked back on the middle of the slope, he saw Hyoju was still rinsing rice at the well. Gon thought he did one good thing in compensation for the eel. The next day, Gon collected lots of chestnuts on the mountain and carried them to Hyoju's house. Looking in the back door, he saw Hyoju was eating lunch but having the dish absently, thinking something. Strangely, there was a scratch on Hyoju's cheek. While Gon thought, what happened? Hyoju talked to himself. Who threw sardines into my house? Because of it, I got a hard time from the sardine seller, he muttered. Gon thought, darn it, poor Hyoju. He was punched by the sardine seller and got such a scar. Gon was thinking this and quietly went to the storage and put chestnuts in front of the door and went back. The next day and the day after that, Gon collected chestnuts and carried them to Hyoju's house. And the next day, he carried not only chestnuts but also matsutake mushrooms. It was a full moon night. Gon was walking around for pleasure. Going under Nakayama Castle a little closer, it seemed someone was coming from over the narrow street. He could hear speaking voices. The pine cricket was singing Chinchidoreen, Chinchidoreen. Gon stayed hidden at one side of the street and remained motionless. The speaking voices were getting closer. It was Hyoju and Kasuke, who's a farmer. Well, Kasuke, Hyoju said. Yes? A very strange thing is happening to me recently. What? After my mom died, although I have no idea why, someone gave me chestnuts or matsutake mushrooms every day. Yeah? Who? Well, I have no idea. The person leaves them while I don't know. Really? Really? If you think I'm telling you a lie, Come to my house tomorrow. I will show you the chestnuts. Well, such a strange thing happens. Then they walked silently. Kasuke looked back suddenly. Gon was startled and shrunk back and stopped. Kasuke didn't see Gon and walked quickly. When they arrived at the house of Kichibei, who's a farmer, they went in. The wooden gong was sounding. A light on the shoji window showed a big shaven head was moving. Gon was sitting near the well thinking, "Ah, there will be a Buddhist invocation." After a while, 3 people went into Kichibei's house. The sutra was started. Gon sat near the well until the sutra was finished. Hyoju and Kasuke came back together again. Gon followed them to hear their conversation. Gon was walking in Hyoju's shadow. When they came to the castle, Kasuke said, regarding the earlier topic, "It must be an act of God." "What?" Hyoju was surprised and looked at Kasuke's face. "I was thinking since then. It seems it is not a human, but God. God feels pity for you who became alone and gives you various things." "Is that so?" "Yes, it is. Thus, you should thank God every day." "Yep." Gon thought, "Well, that is unpleasant. It is I who carries chestnuts or matsutake mushrooms. But he doesn't thank me, but thanks God. It does not pay." The next day, Gon went to Hyoju's house carrying chestnuts. Hyoju was making a rope in the storage, so Gon went into the house through the back door. Then Hyoju unintentionally raised his face and saw a fox had gone into the house. "That is the fox who stole the eel, the Gon fox. It must be coming to play a prank again. Well." Hyoju stood up and took a matchlock musket from the wall and put gunpowder in it. He silently walked closer and shot Gon, who was about to leave from the door. Gon flopped down. Hyoju ran up to the door and saw inside of his house. He found chestnuts gathered on the floor mold. "Oh!" Hyoju looked at Gon, surprised. "Gon, it was you who always gave me chestnuts." Gon nodded limply. His eyes closed. Hyoju dropped the matchlock with a thud. Blue smoke was still coming up from the muzzle. The end.